Hey, it's Johnny Jet. Welcome back to my podcast and YouTube channel. If you're not a subscriber, please click subscribe. And today we have Pauline Frommer, who you know from Frommer's Guides, Frommers.com. Where else, Pauline?
Oh gosh. Well, I was on the radio for 20 years. I did 4 years as CNN headline news's travel person, and I've been on the Today Show, Good Morning America, every local news show you can name, as have you, Johnny. We've been on the same circuits, I think.
We've spoken a lot of different um, conferences together all over the country.
Yeah.
Um,
And hopefully again soon.
I hope so. Let's hope these come back.
Yeah.
And how about social media? Are you active on
Oh,
social?
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Please follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. All you need to do is look for Fromers.
Okay. So how about yourself personally? I know Frommer's is on, but are you on personally or no?
Um, you know, uh, I
Besides
am
Facebook,
on, I am
personally.
on, I'm personally on Facebook, and I kind of keep that personal.
Yeah, I have two Facebook accounts, and I do appreciate you going to bat on my personal one. By the way, I won't bring it up, but anyway, it was always nice having you on my back. So thank you.
Yeah. I figure for social media, I want it to be social. And to me, that means everybody I'm friends with, I would go to dinner with.
Good. Well, all right. Well, I'm glad I made that cut.
You did.
So I know where you live, but why don't you tell everyone where'd you grow up first of all?
I am one of the very few native New Yorkers. I actually was born here during a taxi strike. My mother almost gave birth on the subway. She
Wow.
was yelling and moaning, and everybody was looking at her with incredible exasperation and frustration that she was bumming out their days. But that's New York sometimes.
And you never left. You're still
Well,
there.
yeah, I mean, I travel a lot, but other than that, yeah, the world is here. New York City has a larger population than 40 out of the 50 states. One out of every four people in the city was born in a different country. And so coming here, you really can get the feeling of the entire world, I think.
I never
But I love
knew
my city.
that New York had more population than 40 out of 50 states. Wow.
Absolutely. We've got almost 8 million people.
And how about where'd you go to college?
I went to a Wesleyan University in Connecticut. I
Oh,
was an intellectual history major, which was probably the most pretentious major on the face of the planet, but I loved it. I learned about how philosophy has and has not impacted world history, which was
didn't you study
a
acting
hell of a
too?
lot of fun. No,
Okay, for some reason
I
I thought.
was an actor for many
Okay,
years,
so that's why.
but I studied intellectual history.
Wow, very interesting. How about did you ever live overseas?
No, I'm
Really?
embarrassed to say. I've traveled a lot overseas, and I grew up with my parents spending 3 months out of every year in Europe because my father would take us to Europe every summer to update Europe on $5 a day and then $10 a day, $15 a day. So we had people I considered family in Europe, and
Right.
for a quarter of the year I was there as a child, but not in my adult life.
So by the way, Pauline's father is the original travel guru, Arthur Frommer, and he's just an amazing man. So
Yes, he
just
is.
you're very
Turns
fortunate.
92 soon, still going strong.
Amazing. And how about? Do you have any idea how many countries you've been to?
I don't because I started traveling at the age of 4 months. So there's a lot of places I've been to that I just don't remember. So it's not a list I've ever seriously tried to make.
How about continents?
Gosh, haven't been to either Antarctica or the Arctic. I believe I've been to every other continent,
Australia?
though.
You've been to Australia?
I've been to Australia, I've been to New Zealand,
Africa?
uh, Africa, Asia, Europe. Yeah,
Okay. All right.
South America.
You've been around. Um, and do you have a favorite airline?
Uh, it used to be JetBlue, but they're kind of disappointing me
Are
recently.
they
They've
how?
they've they've gotten less consumer friendly. In a couple of weeks, they're going to start charging. a lot of extra fees. They used to be one of the few that hadn't gone with the basic economy scam,
Right.
and
No,
now
other
they're
than
going to
that,
be doing that.
yeah, they're all pretty
They're all
much
doing it.
they're all trying to make money doing that.
Yeah.
How about your favorite airport in the United States and your favorite airport internationally?
Oh gosh. The airport in Taipei is very, very nice.
Mm-hmm.
Also in Dubai. I can't think of where else you can buy camel's milk chocolates. I mean, that was a fun souvenir to bring home.
Right.
Uh, in the United States,
New
yeah,
LaGuardia.
the New LaGuardia is nice. I like the rocking chairs in Charlotte.
Me too.
I'm not that fond of any of the airports.
Okay.
To me, I'm not a person who complains about air travel because I think it's an incredible blessing, one that previous generations didn't have, that
Agreed.
just in a couple of hours you can be on the other side of the world. But I don't really fall in love with the airport or the airline experience.
I
It's
gotcha.
just what you get through.
And do you use certain credit cards when you travel to get into lounges, or
No,
no? Okay.
I just curl up with a book. I'm pretty short, so I'm pretty comfortable wherever I am.
Right. And besides New York, what's your favorite American city?
That's a tough one. There's so many great cities. I guess I know this is probably cliched, but New Orleans. I could
Okay.
go to New Orleans over and over and over. There's this dance club that I love to go to where everybody's dancing. People who are 15 are dancing with 85-year-olds. And it's just one of the most joyous places on earth. I
And,
love New
and
Orleans.
what's the name of that? Do you remember?
It's called the Black Cat.
The Black Cat. And by the way, since you do live in New York City, we've heard a lot of negative stuff about New York during the pandemic, and we're coming out of it. We're in July
Yeah.
2021. So is New York coming back? Has it gone anywhere? I mean, what?
Well, I think a lot of the rhetoric surrounding New York was politically motivated in a strange way, because I don't really see how anybody wins from it. New York was never as bad as they said it was. In fact, if you look at, I write Frommer's Easy Guide to New York City. So I spend my time studying New York, and statistically, we are still far safer than we were when Giuliani was mayor. The man who stood up at the Republican convention and talked about how dangerous New York was. So New York is not dangerous. It's incredibly vibrant right now because thanks to the pandemic, a lot of restaurants have created these adorable cabins on the sidewalks. And so the restaurant life has spilled out onto the streets, and it's like a party everywhere. And hotel prices are cheaper than they have been in years. Broadway isn't back until September. But other than that, there's never been a better time to come here. The city is just alive and vibrant and less expensive.
And do you feel safe walking down the streets at night? I mean, I used to take the
Oh,
subway at
yeah.
midnight and never thought twice.
Oh, yeah. I take the subway at 3 a.m. I mean, it's funny. I have teenagers and they giggle because they'll come home from school and I'll be taking a disco nap because for about a month out of the year, I have to update the nightlife section of Frommer's Easy Guide to New York City. And so I'm out from midnight to 3 a.m. for many nights in a row. And it's so much fun and it's safe. It's safe. I'm a small woman. I have no worries about walking around the city alone.
Well, that's good to hear. And just personally, this is not political, but everyone says that Giuliani is the one that cleaned up Times Square. Since you lived in New York, is that true? I mean, I always thought it was
Yeah,
because I lived in
yeah,
Connecticut.
sure. Yeah, he cleaned up Times Square. Absolutely. I mean, back then it was a place that was primarily porn theaters, and he was one of the people who was behind changing that and making it a much more family-friendly place to visit. I'm not saying he did bad things. I mean, there were certain he was
Right.
okay as a mayor. We've had better. We've
Oh,
had
I
worse.
remember. Listen, I was actually living in New York during 9/11, and I remember before 9/11 happened,
He
I don't think
stepped
people
up
were
on
happy with him,
9/11.
but he
Yeah,
stepped up. Yeah, he really
yeah.
did.
He was great during 9/11.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
So how about favorite international city?
Oh, wow.
Can I guess?
Yes. What would you
Paris?
guess? That's interesting. I was going to say Lisbon.
Okay.
Lisbon has won my heart recently.
Wow.
If you know about the history of Portugal, until what, the mid 70s, they had one of the worst dictators in Europe. They had a poverty rate and a child mortality rate that was higher than many parts of Africa. It just was a very, very run down, depressed, uh, stifled city and country. And to see how far they've gone, to try the food there and see the gorgeous architecture, which was kind of accidentally preserved because, unlike so many other parts of the world, they had no money when everybody else was upgrading their cities. So Lisbon is just, yeah, Lisbon is an amazing place and
Plus,
very
it's cheap
inexpensive.
too. Yeah,
Yeah,
there you go. I mean,
yeah.
I love it. Any place in the world you have no desire to go to?
Well, I always don't want to say never, but there are certain political regimes in power right now that I don't want to support.
Right.
So I probably won't be going to Hungary anytime soon. And there are other places too
Right.
that I just don't want to spend my money in right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Hungary's taking a hit. I mean, interesting what's going on over there. And I love Budapest. Um,
Yeah, absolutely.
how about where do you think the friendliest people in the world are?
New York City, of course.
I do think people in New York are extremely friendly.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But where are the friendliest people in the world? Gosh. Hmm. There's so many places where people are amazingly friendly. I guess Ireland. I remember taking my wee bairns to Ireland when they were younger and staying in this little B&B. And so many of the B&Bs in Ireland are B&Bs because the people who own them had 5, 6, 7, 8 children. And so they have all these bedrooms when the kids move out. And the woman who was running the Airbnb, or not Airbnb at that time, it was B&B, said to me, "Your daughter looks bored." She was about 4. "Why don't I invite the neighbor children over?" And she set up croquet and they played croquet. And it just was an amazing thing.
Yeah, they are. The Irish, I think, are some of the friendliest in the world. And I
Yeah.
remember I was there for a conference with my boy and ran out of milk. I ran down to the shop. I said, "Where can I buy some milk?" She's like, "Oh, I have some right here." She just poured it in a glass. She didn't charge me anything.
Wow.
Um, they're really nice. How about which country do you think has the meanest immigration officers?
Wow. Hmm. I
Anywhere where
can't
they give you a really difficult time when you're going through.
give a really difficult time. Kenya. When I was in
Kenya.
Kenya,
Wow.
right in December, right before everything shut down, that was an unpleasant process. I
Okay.
remember being grilled more so than I usually am. Actually, my daughters have both my last name and my husband's last name. They're hyphenates, and because of that, whenever we come back to the U.S., we're stopped because anybody with a hyphenated last name because is stopped because certain nationalities tend to have
Really?
hyphenated last
How
names.
about Israel? Have you been to Israel?
I've been to Israel. That's quite a process.
Yeah. I mean, they made my wife cry, the security there.
Oh, wow. Well, my last name means religious, from. And so when I go to Israel, people assume I have some religious ties. So I
Okay.
tend to be treated well.
That's good to know. um, how about islands? Do you have a favorite island in the world?
Wow. Islands. Okay, let's see. What's my favorite island? I don't know if it's my favorite, but I was in Barbados for the Society of American Travel Writers Conference. And I was so impressed with Barbados. What a beautiful island with such
Yeah.
fascinating history, lovely people. And one of my favorite things, the beach right in front of our resort. Every day, jockeys from the nearby race course would come with their incredible horses to bathe them in the sea, and they would allow tourists to just come up and pet these magnificent creatures. So maybe Barbados. Well,
Yeah.
there's so many, but I love
I,
Barbados.
I was at that conference and I stayed at
Yes.
that same resort and I took my boy out every morning to
Did
see
you
that.
get to see the
Yeah,
horses?
it was amazing.
It was amazing.
It really
Amazing.
was.
Yeah.
Um, how about, since you're such a New York City expert, I usually ask what's your favorite restaurant in the world, but I guess I should ask you
Hmm.
what's your favorite one in New York City, hole in wall or fancy? And it could be around
Oh,
the world, but
wow. Well, there's a restaurant. I don't know if it's my very favorite, but my favorite new restaurant in New York City is this place called Iris. It's actually in the theater district where all the tourists are going to be soon, surprisingly enough. And it serves Mediterranean food, specifically Greek and Turkish food. But the type of Greek and Turkish food you usually don't get to try outside of Greek or Turkey.
wow.
And so they use sorrel in the food. They use all kinds of unusual spices and herbs. And it's absolutely delicious. And they make it fun. They walk around with carts for certain things. So there's all you have your choice on the carts with all of the different desserts. It's a really, really great addition to the city.
I love to hear that. And by the way, what is your favorite food?
What is my favorite food? Oh gosh. I don't think I have one. I wouldn't want to be stuck with just eating one type of food.
Okay. And then fruit, is there, do you have a favorite fruit when you travel the world anywhere? Like I love going to Southeast Asia to get mangosteens.
Oh wow. I love mangoes. I love pineapples. One of the best things is when you get to those stands on the streets of New York or on the streets of Bogota, and they're cutting up the mangoes and they're dumping chili on them and lime and salt. So delicious.
Gotcha. What's your favorite travel movie?
I really love that one with Scarlett Johansson and Bill Murray. It
Oh
takes
yeah,
place in Japan.
totally.
To me, that really kind of encapsulates the travel experience, the boredom of it sometimes,
Yeah.
the excitement, the unusual people you meet and become close to very quickly. What is that called? Do you
You know
know?
what? It's one of my favorite movies too. And because you just asked me, I'm like, I'm trying to think what it is.
What is that movie? It
I
was
know
her
it.
debut,
Um, I'll have to Google it.
Lost in Translation.
Lost in Translation. Thank you. I do love that movie, and I actually watched it in Japan while I was in Japan once, and
Wow.
it made it even more special. But
Huh.
how about favorite travel show?
Travel show. Um,
I know you have a lot
well,
of friends that have
I
shows like
know
Rick
it's,
and
I was going to
Samantha and
say
Josh.
Samantha Brown always makes me smile.
Yeah, she
I
does.
uh, I I love her spirit, and I love that she really explores the hidden corners of places and the things that other shows don't.
Right,
And I love that she's a woman. There aren't enough women on the air, and
right.
so I want to support Samantha.
How about favorite travel book besides Frommer Guides?
Oh my, famous favorite travel book. There was this incredible book called The Places in Between. And it was this man who decided to walk across Afghanistan, of all places.
Wow.
And because Afghanistan is such a mountainous country, every part was totally disconnected from the others. And so, like one town, every Sharia law was all the women are covered. Another town was Christian, and women had the major jobs in the town. And it showed you that you really can't know about a place until you actually go there and see how the people are living. Because it came out right before one of the wars in Afghanistan, where there was a lot of coverage of the terrible things happening in Afghanistan, but not much about the culture and history. And you realized what a tragedy it was that this country was constantly at war and
Right.
constantly having to defend itself. But they did bad things too. I'm not saying I'm pro Afghani, but it really, I'm not sure what I am saying there. But it showed what the culture was. I'm always pro the people of a place, even if we're in conflict with them.
Have you been back on a plane since the pandemic?
Oh yes, a number of planes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And no problem traveling right now.
I was kind of snippy early in the pandemic too, a guy who took off his mask next to me. I said, please put that back.
And did he,
He did. He seemed shocked that I would be so forceful. But it was when it was everywhere.
right.
And I just couldn't believe how irresponsible he was being.
Unfortunately, I think a lot of people are like that. It kind of bothers me. I was hoping that, this pandemic would at least teach people to cover your mouth when you sneeze or cough. And because that was one of my biggest pet peeves while I was before the pandemic traveling. I always carried masks in my bag.
Wow.
To either give to someone or to wear myself.
Huh.
And anyway,
yeah,
I still see it. I still see people coughing without covering their mouths, and I'm like, what?
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Speaking of bringing things on a plane, is there anything unusual that you bring on a plane, or what are 5 things that you do bring on the plane that you never forget?
Well, one of my best stocking stuffers was this little device that you put in the plane, and it allows your headless earphones to work. So you can watch a movie without having to plug in.
Nice.
So that's, I can't remember what the heck the name of it is. But that's something I try to always remember to bring on a plane.
That's cool.
Other than
and
that,
they never gave you a hard time because that's Bluetooth.
No, it worked. It worked.
Yeah, but sometimes they, I used to use my mouse because it's Bluetooth. They're like, you can't use Bluetooth. And I'm like, what?
No, nobody's ever said a word to me.
Okay, good.
Bring that. I bring my own dinner usually because I'm always in economy class. And
are you really always in economy class?
Well, I pay for my own travel.
Right, but you don't use your points ever to upgrade or anything like that?
I am so bad with points, Johnny. I think it takes a certain mindset. I just don't have the patience for it.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
That's how I'm flying first class. Right now, you can fly New York, LA, first class, lie flat seat for 37,000 miles if you do it last minute American.
Yeah, but you know what? I'm 5'2". Okay, I'm not that uncomfortable in economy. It's okay.
Economy's first class.
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. I don't want to spend my brain power on that.
I got you. All right, just a few more questions.
Yep.
What's your dream destination?
Well, I would like to see Antarctica, but I get terribly seasick. So I'm terrified of the Drake Passage.
I'm with you.
But so someday I'll find some kind of medication, and those usually work. So
and
that's
you can
that's
fly.
My
there are some that
very expensive.
Now. Yeah, crazy. Yeah. How about your worst travel moment? I know it's not a great question, but
well, this was when my older daughter, who's now 22, when she was about 8, we went to Costa Rica, and we decided to do a zip line. And she just made the cutoff, but she was a very small girl. She was very light. And she went zipping across this massive valley and then stopped in the middle.
You were going to say that.
Because she wasn't heavy enough. And she's screaming and crying. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what are we going to do? And the guide shimmied out, grabbed her with his legs, and got her to the other side. I mean, it was incredible. And she's still screaming and crying. And I think I'm the worst mother ever. But we were in the middle of the course. There was no going back. We had to keep going. So he said, look, I'll strap you to me. She did one strapped with him. She loved it. The next day she wanted to do it again.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah. So it all worked out.
That says a lot about her.
Yeah.
Good to know. How about what's your best travel tip?
Well, this is one for women that I actually stealing from the late great Evelyn Hannon, who founded Journeywoman. She said, if you are in a city and you're feeling nervous about being there as an outsider, go into a very local store and buy something really cheap so that you can get the bag of that local store, the little plastic bag or the paper bag with its logo on it. And you carry that around. And even if you look totally different from everyone else there, people will think you're a local and you're less likely to get harassed. because sometimes as a woman traveler, you can deal with a lot of harassment.
Right.
So I thought that was a really smart tip.
Interesting. Yeah, she was a very nice woman
Yeah,
and
she was
so
great.
full of incredible travel tips. I wish I got to
Yeah.
interview her like this.
Yeah.
Well, Pauline, I appreciate you taking the time. One more time, where can people find you?
Please come visit us at frommers.com or at your independent bookstore. We all need to be supporting indies and buying books, especially travel guides.
And you're selling two different kinds. You're selling the Frommer's books and the Frommer's Easy Guide. Is it? What is it called?
Oh, well, we have Frommer guides, we have the day by days, which are almost like little magazines and very portable. We have the easy guides, which are a little bit more concise. We've got a bunch of lines.
And how many destinations? Any idea?
We have 130 books in print right now to
Do you,
different places of the world.
and did you update them for 2021 as well?
We are right now in the midst of updating all of them. When the pandemic hit, I stopped production because I knew the world was going to change drastically,
Right.
and so we are updating them from scratch. So much has changed in so many parts of the world that we're doing major overhauls. So there were no new books in 2020 from us, unlike some of our competitors. I won't say who. But so all of our new books will be really up to date and really useful.
And two quick questions. In New York City, have the restaurants have a lot of them changed hands, closed, or are they back? They just took time off.
I lost about a quarter of the restaurants in my
Did
book.
you? Wow.
Yeah, a lot of restaurants closed, but amazingly, a lot of new ones are already popping up and taking their place.
Okay.
There are a lot of like the one I told you about.
Right. I heard.
So there were some great ones. Broke my heart. There was this place called Sammy's Famous Romanian, which was in a basement on the Lower East Side. You had a guy at an electrical piano playing show tunes, and they would serve you vodka encased in blocks of ice. It was so much fun, and it didn't make it.
Wow.
Uh,
I'm
but
sorry to hear that. And how about in Paris? Someone asked me, the restaurant's open in Paris right now, and I'm like, I think so.
actually, we're in the middle of updating Paris, and that's one of our easiest books to do because the French government really subsidized all the businesses. So my author says she's not losing any restaurants or any hotels.
Good. So, and if you go there right now, you can dine in a restaurant.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Well, let's end on that positive note.
Okay.
Pauline,
Terrific.
thank you very much, and hopefully I'll see you at a travel show soon.
That would be great. Great to see you,
You
Johnny.
too. Take care. Bye bye.